Christmas Eve, 1945. For the Sodder family of Fayetteville, West Virginia, this night ended in an inferno of unimaginable loss and mystery. The flames consumed their home, seemingly taking 5 young lives with it. But the fire left behind more questions than answers. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant, had built a good life for his wife Jenny and their 10 children. As the flames died down, 5 of the Sodder children were missing: Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. The fire was deemed accidental, but the Sodder family refused to accept this. Their children vanished, and their disappearance was shrouded in mystery. The investigation was cursory, dismissive, concluding it was a tragic accident, but for the Sodders, this explanation rang hollow. The fire was just the beginning of their nightmare. In the ashes of their home, the Sodders found strange clues hinting at a truth far more sinister than a simple accident. A phone call in the dead of night, a voice asking for someone unknown, a missing ladder, the only way to reach the children's bedrooms, vanished without a trace. And then, the most disturbing discovery of all, no remains. The fire was said to be so intense that it incinerated the children's bodies beyond recognition. But Jenny Sodder refused to believe it. She knew her children were not in those ashes. The more the Sodders investigated, the more convinced they became that the fire was no accident. Whispers turned to rumors, speculation running rampant through the small town of Fayetteville. Was it a tragic accident or something more sinister? The questions lingered, unanswered. Driven by grief and belief that their children were alive, the Sodders embarked on a relentless search for answers. They chased down every lead, every whisper, every fleeting hope. The Sodders became amateur detectives, their home a command center for their search. They scoured newspapers, distributed flyers, and conducted interviews. Years turned into decades, and still, the Sodders refused to give up hope. The mystery of their missing children became a national obsession. Theories abounded, but none could solve the puzzle. Was it a kidnapping, a revenge plot, or did the children flee into the night? The mystery continues to fascinate and frustrate. The search for answers continues, a testament to the enduring power of love and the haunting grip of the unknown. Nestled in West Virginia, Fayetteville was a town where everyone knew their neighbors. It was in this setting that the Sodder family built their lives. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant, built a successful trucking business. He found love with Jenny, and together they built a home filled with warmth. Their 10 children were their pride and joy. Maurice, the eldest, was a natural leader. Martha brought sunshine into their lives. Louis was quiet and observant. Jenny was the artist of the family, and Betty, the baby of the family, was a precious gift. The whispers started subtly, like the first chill of an unexpected frost. George had made his opposition to Mussolini's regime well known. His outspoken nature earned him respect, but also drew ire. Fayetteville was not immune to political tensions. There were veiled threats and unsettling encounters. A man warned George, "Your house will go up in smoke and your children will be destroyed." Another stranger criticized their home's wiring despite a recent inspection. These encounters took on new significance as the months went by. The Sodders found themselves looking over their shoulders, their idyllic life in Fayetteville now tinged with an unsettling premonition of darkness. Christmas Eve, 1945, dawned crisp and clear in Fayetteville. The Sodder children were busy unwrapping gifts, their laughter echoing through the house. For a moment, the shadows of worry seemed to recede. Jenny watched her children play, a sense of contentment washing over her. But George's unease lingered. The unsettling encounters of recent months cast a pall over the celebrations. The older Sodder children begged to stay up past their usual bedtime. George hesitated but relented, his voice gruff, but his eyes softening with affection. He reminded them to extinguish the Christmas lights before retiring. The older children retreated to the attic, their excited chatter fading into the distance. Around 1 a.m., a jarring sound pierced the stillness of the night. The insistent ringing of the telephone sent a shiver down Jenny's spine. A woman's voice, unfamiliar and laced with unsettling amusement, crackled through the line. Jenny replaced the receiver and noticed the lights in the house were still on. Just as she reached the foot of the stairs, A loud thud from above, followed by the crackling of flames, sent a jolt of terror through her. The house was on fire. Screaming for George, Jenny raced towards the stairs, her only thought to reach her children. The heat was intense, the flames licking at the walls. Jenny tried to ascend the stairs, but the fire had already engulfed the staircase. The thought of her children trapped upstairs fueled her desperate attempts to reach them. George, roused by Jenny's frantic cries, bolted out of bed. Flames were already engulfing the staircase. He saw Jenny trying in vain to fight her way through the inferno. Adrenaline surged through George's veins. His children were trapped upstairs, and every instinct screamed for him to reach them. He lunged for Jenny, pulling her back from the flames. George remembered the ladder propped against the side of the house, but the ladder was gone, vanished without a trace. Desperate, George raced to his trucks, but the engines remained silent. His truck sat idle, mocking his desperate attempts to save his children. As dawn broke over Fayetteville, casting a pale light on the charred remains of the Sodder home, an eerie silence descended upon the scene. The once familiar sounds of children's laughter, the comforting rhythm of family life, were replaced by a hollow stillness. The inferno that had raged through the night, fueled by dreams and holiday cheer, had finally burned itself out, leaving behind a smoldering skeleton of timber and stone, a haunting monument to the family shattered within its walls. George and Jenny Sodder stood amidst the ruins, their faces etched with a grief so profound it seemed to age them beyond their years. The fire had claimed everything, their home, their possessions, their sense of security, but it was the gaping hole in their family, the absence of 5 precious souls, that threatened to swallow them whole. The younger children, their faces stained with tears and soot, clung to their parents, their small bodies trembling with a mix of fear and confusion, their innocent eyes reflecting the horror of the night before. The air, heavy with the smell of smoke and damp ashes, seemed to crackle with unspoken questions, with a growing sense of unease that settled over the scene like a shroud. Neighbors, their faces etched with a mixture of sympathy and morbid curiosity, gathered at a respectful distance, their hushed whispers doing little to penetrate the wall of grief that enveloped the Sodder family. How could this happen, they wondered, on Christmas Eve no less, to a family so full of life, so loved by the community? The fire trucks, their once piercing sirens now silent, departed one by one, their presence no longer needed in the face of such complete and utter devastation. The firefighters, their faces grim, their movements weary, had done all they could, but the inferno had been too swift, too merciless, leaving them with the bitter taste of defeat and a haunting sense of what might have been. As the last of the emergency vehicles disappeared down the road, the Sodders were left alone with their grief, their unanswered questions multiplying with every passing moment. With heavy hearts and a determination fueled by a flicker of hope, the Sodder family began the agonizing task of sifting through the ashes of their home, their fingers raw, their movements mechanical as they searched for any sign of their missing children. Every charred piece of wood, every twisted bit of metal, every fragment of bone was carefully examined, their hopes rising and falling with each discovery, only to be dashed again by the grim reality that met their gaze. The fire chief, his face etched with a mixture of sympathy and professional detachment, approached George, his voice somber as he delivered the news they had both been dreading. "Mr. Sodder," he said, placing a comforting hand on George's shoulder, "I'm truly sorry, but we haven't found any remains. The fire, it was so hot, so fast that—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the smoke-filled air. George, his face pale, his jaw clenched tight, listened as the fire chief explained that the intense heat of the blaze could have completely incinerated the children's bodies, leaving no trace behind. He spoke of the chemical composition of bone, of the temperatures required for complete combustion, his words a jumble of technicalities that did little to soothe the gnawing doubt that was beginning to take root in George's gut. Jenny, her grief tinged with a mother's intuition, refused to accept the fire chief's explanation. Her children, her flesh and blood, were gone, vanished without a trace, and the lack of physical evidence only fueled her suspicions that something was terribly wrong. She had heard tales of bodies remaining even in the most devastating fires, of bones resisting the inferno's wrath, and she clung to these stories as a lifeline, her heart refusing to accept the finality of the fire chief's words. The official investigation was swift and superficial, concluding the fire was a tragic accident caused by faulty wiring. But George and Jenny Sodder refused to be silenced, convinced their children were not in those ashes. They vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. In the wake of the fire, the Sodders grappled with their loss and the lack of answers. Strange occurrences and unsettling clues began to surface, like fragments of a shattered mirror. The official explanation, a tragic accident, rang hollow. They knew something was terribly wrong. The missing ladder, seen hours before the fire, reappeared in a ditch scarred by flames. Whispers of strange lights and a speeding car haunted the Sodders. They clung to these stories, convinced the official explanation was a facade. The Sodders' relentless pursuit of their missing children led them down a path of dead ends and false hopes. They placed flyers everywhere, their hearts breaking with each passing day. One afternoon a letter arrived with a grainy photograph. The boy resembled their missing son, Louis. The police dismissed it as mistaken identity. Despite setbacks, the Sodders never gave up hope. They believed their children were still out there, their faces lost in the crowd. The more the Sodders investigated, the more they became convinced that they were not dealing with a simple case of accidental death, but rather a deliberate act, a carefully orchestrated cover-up designed to silence them, to protect someone, or something, far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The lack of cooperation from the authorities, their dismissive attitude towards the family's concerns, only fueled the Sodders' suspicions that they were up against a force far greater than themselves. Whispers of a possible connection to the Italian mafia began to circulate, fueled by George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and his refusal to bow to the demands of certain individuals within the community who sought to silence his dissent. Had George's defiance come at a terrible price, his children taken as collateral damage in a vendetta rooted in old-world grudges and a thirst for power? The Sodders, their world turned upside down, found themselves caught in a web of suspicion and intrigue, their once peaceful lives now entangled with forces beyond their comprehension. They began to receive threatening phone calls, their silence bought with veiled threats against their remaining children, their every move seemingly watched, their once safe haven transformed into a prison of fear and paranoia. The authorities, however, remained unconvinced, dismissing the Sodders' claims as the ramblings of a grief-stricken family grasping at straws. The fire, they maintained, was a tragedy, a terrible accident, and the lack of evidence to support the Sodders' theories only served to strengthen their resolve that the case was closed. But for the Sodders, the fight was far from over. They had stared into the abyss of unimaginable loss, and they emerged from the darkness with a fierce determination to uncover the truth, no matter the cost, their love for their missing children a force more powerful than any conspiracy of silence. The mystery of the Sodder children's disappearance deepened over the years, fueling speculation and theories. Amidst rumors, one theory persisted: kidnapping. The Sodders suspected foul play from the start. The fire seemed too perfect, a smokescreen for a sinister act. Whispers spread through Fayetteville, hinting at a vendetta. George Sodder's enemies might have targeted his children. Witnesses saw a suspicious car on the night of the fire. Some claimed to see the children with strangers. The Sodders believed their children were taken. But who were the shadowy figures behind it all? The Sodders' relentless pursuit of justice led them to a shadowy organization, the Mafia. George Sodder's criticism of Mussolini painted a target on his family. The Mafia, with its code of silence, had the means to make the Sodder children disappear. Their lives became a paranoid nightmare, entangled in a conspiracy of silence. Despite the years of dead ends and the ever-present shadow of fear, the Sodders never gave up hope. They clung to every lead, every fleeting possibility, their love for their missing children a beacon in the darkness. They transformed their grief into action, their once happy home now a command center for their tireless search. Walls were plastered with maps, timelines, and photographs, each image a painful reminder of their loss, yet also a source of unwavering hope. Over the years they received countless tips, each one carefully scrutinized, every potential sighting investigated, no matter how improbable. Psychics offered cryptic clues, their words both tantalizing and frustratingly vague. Private investigators were hired, their reports filled with speculation and conjecture, yet failing to uncover any concrete evidence. The Sodder children, it seemed, had vanished into thin air, their existence erased as if they had never been. Yet amidst the despair there were glimmers of hope, fleeting moments that kept the Sodder spirits from being completely extinguished. Witnesses came forward, their memories faded, but their conviction unwavering. A waitress in a roadside diner hundreds of miles from Fayetteville swore she had served the Sodder children breakfast a few weeks after the fire, their faces etched with a sadness that belied their youthful exuberance. A bus driver in Charleston, West Virginia, reported seeing the children in the company of two well-dressed adults, their demeanor suggesting a family on holiday, rather than a group of frightened captives. These sightings, though impossible to verify, offered a lifeline to the Sodders, a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming despair. They clung to these stories, these fleeting glimpses into their children's possible fate, their hearts refusing to accept the finality of loss. The Sodder children, they believed, were out there somewhere, their lives forever altered by the events of that fateful Christmas Eve, yet their spirits unbroken, their connection to their family a bond that time and distance could not sever. Decades passed, seasons turned, and the once vibrant hues of the missing children's photographs faded, yet the Sodders never surrendered their quest for answers. Time softened their grief, but not their love. George and Jenny, their hair now silvered, continued to chase every lead, their determination unwavering. They mortgaged their home, placed ads, and offered rewards, transforming their property into a shrine. The billboard, weathered by time, became a local landmark, a symbol of their unwavering resolve. As technology advanced, they embraced it, hoping to unlock the mystery of their children's disappearance. Their love for their children a compass guiding them through the darkness, their hope a flickering flame. The mystery of the Sodder children captured the imagination of the nation, their story whispered around campfires, debated in hushed tones, a chilling reminder that even in the heartland of America, darkness could lurk beneath the surface of small-town life. Amateur sleuths, their curiosity piqued by the case's enduring enigma, pored over the details, offering their own theories, their speculations ranging from the plausible to the bizarre. Yet despite the passage of time and the relentless scrutiny, the truth remained elusive, a puzzle with missing pieces that refused to be found. The official investigation, hampered from the outset by a lack of resources and a dismissive attitude towards the Sodder family's concerns, had long since gone cold. The fire, they maintained, was a tragic accident. The missing children presumed dead, their bodies consumed by the flames. But for those who delved deeper into the case, too many questions lingered, too many loose ends remained, casting doubt on the official narrative. Why was the ladder, always meticulously kept in place, missing on the night of the fire? How did George's trucks, usually reliable workhorses, simultaneously fail to start? Who made the mysterious phone call, their voice laced with amusement rather than concern? And perhaps most perplexing of all, why were no remains ever found despite the intense heat of the blaze? The fire chief's explanation that the children's bodies had been completely incinerated seemed improbable at best, a convenient conclusion that did little to quell the doubts that lingered like smoke in the air. The Sodders, their voices hoarse from years of pleading for answers, their hearts heavy with a grief that time could not diminish, continued to challenge the official narrative, their pleas for a more thorough investigation falling on deaf ears. They were dismissed as a grief-stricken family, their judgment clouded by sorrow, their theories fueled by a desperate need for closure. Yet they refused to be silenced, their love for their children a force more powerful than any official dismissal, their quest for truth an enduring testament to the power of hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. George Sodder passed away in 1969. His heart worn down by years of relentless searching, Jenny, her spirit unbroken, continued the fight, her once vibrant red hair now a crown of snow white. She never moved from the Fayetteville home, the site of her greatest joy and her most profound sorrow, her spirit sustained by the belief that they were still out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. The years marched on, each one a painful reminder of time's relentless passage. The remaining Sodder children grew older, their own families a bittersweet reminder of the siblings they had lost. Their childhoods forever marked by the shadow of that Christmas Eve inferno. Yet, they never abandoned hope. Today the mystery of the Sodder children remains unsolved, a haunting reminder that some questions may never have answers. The case of the missing Sodder children serves as a chilling reminder that some mysteries may never be solved. But it also stands as a testament to the enduring power of love, the unwavering hope that burns bright even in the darkest of times. And so the search continues, fueled by the embers of memory, the unwavering belief that one day, somehow, the missing pieces of this heartbreaking puzzle will be found, bringing closure to a family forever haunted by the ghosts of that Christmas Eve inferno. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and share to see more mysterious cases.